And then over this period of time, this is when we come to what James O'Brien did.
Yes.
And you have said that for the past 10 years, you wanted to look at the people who were higher up in the food chain, who were behind, in some ways, the more institutional attempt to
Metropolitan
destroy.
Police officers.
Yes. Tom Watson.
Who had spoken to Carl Beech at the House of Commons to such an extent that Carl Beech said that Tom Watson was part of his team.
He was.
Yeah, of course he was.
He was.
There's a track record of people not wishing to apologise, and Tom Watson joins the team.
Well, indeed, they're despicable men. And one person who I have huge respect for in all of this is Douglas Murray, the Spectator's associate editor, because, like me, he knows what a nefarious force James O'Brien is for this country. And he has always tracked the despicable lies of James O'Brien in regards to this case in The Spectator. I just want to read for our audience just a couple of paragraphs of what Douglas Murray, someone who a lot of us have huge respect for, said about James O'Brien's terrible reporting in regards to you, but also in regards to the others. Because remember, many of these individuals were dead, and it was left to their relatives to try and pick up the pieces to fight for the reputation of their loved ones, who were also, let's just repeat this, completely innocent of the claims that Carl Beech made against them. And of course, there is no defamation if you are dead, so it can be even more difficult. But this is what Douglas Murray said of James O'Brien. He promoted claims that the British establishment, from former prime ministers and ministers to the director of public prosecutions, the legal profession, the police, and the entirety of the British media, were involved in a conspiracy to cover up the rape and murder of children. Along the way, he expressed more than contempt for the mainstream media, who were not willing, like him, to believe Carl Beech's lies wholesale. He did not simply express contempt for the media, he accused them of being part of the cover-up. As I mentioned, this would ordinarily require more than a slight sorry, not sorry. But in any case, everyone else fell for it too, apology. Most of the media was wary of promoting Carl Beech's lies because they sensed that they didn't stack up. O'Brien had no such qualms and dived straight in, pushing and promoting the conspiracy theories, lies and libels which the month before last finally saw Carl Beech sent to prison. Perhaps the sole happy outcome of this whole sorry affair is that while Beech serves out his sentence, his most prominent megaphone in the British media can be giving lectures on subjects including how to be right and how to expose falsehoods. So Douglas Murray has always believed that James O'Brien's role in this shameful saga is utterly critical, and you now, Harvey, are prepared to speak about this.
I am. In terms of the media, and this is how I felt at the time going back to 2015, I believe the Metropolitan Police were dripping pieces of information to the media, mainstream or otherwise, to try to get other people to come forward to back up what Carl Beech was saying. So fed up that I decided that I wanted to attack back. And I held a press conference which I think has gone down in history as the changer for Operation Midland, 25th of August 2015, when I outlined everything I knew about Operation Midland, the allegations that had been made against me and why they were heinous and false and wrong, and the other people who were being accused. I thought that was important too, so the media had the full story, which the police were trying to keep away from
that
them.
was Ted Heath.
Well, the other people in the gang were former Prime Minister Ted Heath, former Home Secretary Lord Leon Britton, Field Marshal Lord Bramwell, head of the Armed Forces and war hero, the head of MI5, the head of MI6, and others.
Greville Jenner,
and Carl Beech's stepfather. Not that I knew him by the name, but that's who he was.
And indeed, and it's just important just for me to zoom out. I mean, this, when you say this now, it sounds fanciful because the point is, this was all a concocted, made-up story from a total fantasist who is a paedophile himself.
There is not one shred of truth in any of the allegations Carl Beech made.
No, which meant there was no evidence either, ever.
There was no evidence. And who do I rely on for that? At the end of Operation Midland, the Met Commissioner, then Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe, now Lord Hogan-Howe, he was promoted.
Of course.
They all were promoted, enriched in this. He appointed Sir Richard Enriquez, a famous former respected High Court judge, to have an investigation into Operation Midland. And he came to the conclusion that there were 40-odd mistakes that the Met had made in Operation Midland, that we were all innocent. I'm not quoting him exactly, but he looked at the 2 interviews I'd done with the Metropolitan Police, one for 2.5 hours and I think the other for about 6 hours, when Sir Richard Enriquez said he'd never heard an interview where the obvious innocence of a man had been set forth. So, yes, their own judge appointed to investigate Operation Midland, came to the conclusion that we were all innocent of Beech's allegations.
And remember, people in the media, Harvey, had a choice because, sure, you were always going to report the very basics of the case, right? Which was this person has been arrested or had their house searched, whatever. But I was in a senior position in the media during all of that time. I was executive editor at The Sun at the time. We never believed these allegations. We never ran these front pages after front pages like the Daily Mirror and like the Sunday Mirror and like the People were for political reasons and like James O'Brien was doing for political reasons. Journalists have a choice. And Carl Beech, and I can say this because I was in the media at the time, was never credible. Yet James O'Brien was going on the air very, very regularly saying those things that we saw him say earlier.
Can you believe that more than half of you are watching this video but not subscribed? So please do me a huge favour. Click the subscribe button now. Turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to all of our brand new Outspoken videos.
Not just saying them himself. He was interviewing Carl Beech.
Yes.
He was interviewing the lead guy
From
of
Exaro.
Exaro. Not just once, but several times. And it was quite clear, now that I look at his broadcasts at the time, that he believed them. Now, why do I say this now and not at the time? Because what we didn't go into, but perhaps it's now right to say, as a result of what the police did, as a result of what Beech had said, and others, including Exaro and others supporting him, I lost my home, my job, my repute, and I started receiving death threats. And so I came to the conclusion in August 2015 that I couldn't safely continue to live in the country. And I went abroad to live.
You lost everything.
Everything.
And James O'Brien was a huge part of that megaphone, which meant that you were, because remember, you were, as you say, never arrested, never charged. But I believe, Harvey, you were never given due process in a large part because of the allegations that were being broadcast by James O'Brien, who, remember, was painting you as a liar and as a sexual deviant.
O'Brien was doing exactly what the Metropolitan Police wanted him to do, trying to get...
But he didn't have to do that.
He didn't have to do that because he was a journalist. He was a journalist. But what they were trying to do was to get other people to come forward to back up what Carl Beech had said, his allegations. Well, there wasn't anybody out there who genuinely could come forward with allegations to back up Carl Beech.
Exactly.
In fact, let me just say this.
Please.
2 other people did come forward. They weren't genuine. They weren't genuine.
Exactly, which is why Starmer's whole position about, believe all victims
Believe the victim
is ludicrous. But the bigger point is there was no Westminster VIP paedophile ring. It didn't exist. But the problem is you were the only living person at that time who could be the face for James O'Brien. And of course, the fact that you were a conservative, I believe, was a huge part of his desire to make you the face of this.
If I had been a former Labour Member of Parliament, the heavens would have opened. There is no way that he would have said what he did say had I been a former Labour Member of Parliament, and that goes for others too. And I just wonder, would the Metropolitan Police have acted in the way they did if I was a former Labour
Well, I don't believe they would have. Now, you say about James O'Brien, his role should not be forgotten or forgiven. He was indeed a central cheerleader for one of the most grotesque miscarriages of justice in recent British history. He gave a powerful platform to Beech, a convicted liar, fraudster and paedophile whose falsehoods wrecked lives. And what's interesting is you're backing up what I'm saying, because you say, while most journalists viewed Beech's absurd conspiracy theories with justified scepticism, O'Brien indulged them regularly on his LBC programme. And you say, Harvey, not all of his LBC colleagues agreed. Indeed, Ian Dale gave you unwavering support throughout Operation.
Ian Dale was very good. Before I went to Spain, he'd agreed to publish a book, which I wrote shortly after Operation Midland ended. It's called Credible and True. He interviewed me on the evening of my press conference on the 25th of August, and he's interviewed me subsequently. So I have the utmost respect for Ian Dale. But James O'Brien is quite different. James O'Brien, only last week on LBC, said, sometimes it's right to apologise, and to apologise is not a sign of weakness. James O'Brien has not apologised to me or any of the others for the remarks that he made. I believe that he should. I doubt that he will. I think by not apologising, it is a sign of weakness. And I think he's a tawdry man.
What does it say about him as a human being? I mean, obviously as a journalist, his credibility, in my view, has long been shot. But why this case is so important is it proves that he is actually a terrible journalist because he will allow his desire for a story to be true to come before the absolute fact of the matter. But what does it say about him as a human being? That's what really shocks me. The fact that he tries to present himself, right, as someone who's on the left, someone who's liberal, someone who's tolerant. But the moment he wanted to destroy you, he hearkened back to lies about your sex life from decades ago. To me, that's someone that feels like someone who's very morally corrupted.
Well, you see, he said that I'd lied in 1986, 87. I have not lied. He can't, no one can prove that I lied in 86, 87 with the knowledge that I had at the time. Hindsight is a great thing, but I did not lie in 86, 87. I did not lie about Operation Midland in 2015, 2016, or subsequently. He can't prove that I lied about anything because I haven't. And what should happen to him? Well, he certainly should apologise. If he was half decent, he would resign.
He should have resigned at the time.
He should.
But he also should have been sacked at the time because he brought shame on LBC.
He's still there. How LBC can still employ him, knowing all of this and knowing there is no defence, beggars belief.
And obviously recently we've seen him go down other pretty shocking rabbit holes. I mean, he read out a very highly anti-Semitic letter on air, for which he did apologise the next day. So I actually feel a lot of this is on the bosses of LBC. The fact is they should have demanded an apology from her.
I think they probably did in that case.
Well, yes, but I mean, in your case.
But first, as I've entered my 40s, aging has become ever present in my life. My body doesn't back up the way it used to, and I've found that it's far easier to get injured when trying to work out, far harder to recover too. But I believe one of the best aging breakthroughs of the last decade is qualia senolytic. And I'm going to explain why. Senolytics are a science field revolutionizing human aging. A big culprit behind that middle-aged feeling can be so-called zombie cells that linger in your body after their useful function, wasting your energy and resources. Now, those zombie cells can lead to less energy, slower workout recovery, joint discomfort, and basically feeling old. Now, qualia senolytic is a groundbreaking, clinically tested supplement with 9 vegan plant-derived compounds that help your body naturally eliminate these zombie cells, helping you feel years younger in just months. But here's what I absolutely love about this product. You take it just 2 days a month, helping your body naturally eliminate zombie cells to age better at the cellular level. Now, since taking qualia senolytic, I've felt like I've turned back the clock. I have higher energy, less soreness after exercise, and a big boost in productivity too. That all equals feeling so much better. So experience the science of feeling younger by going to qualialife.com/Dan for up to 50% off your purchase. Use the code DAN, that's DAN, for an additional 15%. So that's QUALIA life.com/Dan for an extra 15% off your purchase. Your older self will thank you. And by the way, thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode. Now, let's get back to it.
History is a fine thing, isn't it? And they may think in terms of the media, particularly LBC, where they go from one subject to the next in a matter of minutes, that when it comes to putting something right that happened 10 years ago, they glaze over.
Well, of course, but for you, your life has never been the same again.
It never will be.
And it's worth just talking about that because for a year, this hangs over you, even though you are never arrested, you're never charged, and I know what this is like, you know, because of Xaro Media, because of James O'Brien. I suffered from something very similar. Doesn't matter that there's no arrest, doesn't matter that there's no charge. People always go with that narrative of, well, there's smoke, there must be fire. So eventually, a year later, you receive a letter officially confirming that no further action will be taken against you. But presumably, so much of the damage at that point is done.
It is. The letter was sent to my solicitor, not to me. So my solicitor drew it to my attention.
How did you feel?
And they are,
Relief anger?
those words, no further action, are weasel words. Because in the letter it's clear, and I said to you earlier, coincidentally, I happened to look in my archives last night and found that letter and read it. And it was quite clear the weasel words were inferring. Of course, if somebody comes forward and backs up Carl Beech again, we might reopen the books, as though they still did not in 2016 accept that Carl Beech was lying. And I believe now that there are certain members of the Metropolitan Police and former members of the Metropolitan Police who still believe Carl Beech to be right.
Oh my God.
Would you believe that?
That's insane.
It is insane, but I believe that to be the truth.
It just shows you, and by the way, I so agree with what you say about the language of how the police do these things. It was the same with me. Oh, if any evidence, well, there was never, if any more evidence comes, well, there was never any evidence in the first place. It was from a liar. Yeah. And that's astonishing what you say about Carl Beech, because as a reminder to everyone, in 2019, we obviously saw it at the top of the show, Carl Beech jailed for 18 years. And it wasn't, by the way, only a jailing for perverting the course of justice and fraud. It was also for several child sexual offences. He is not just a fantasist, he is a paedophile. This is who they trusted over you.
Well, let me tell you something else. Part of his paedophilia was to insert in his Gloucester home at the time a camera to film his son's friends when they went to the bathroom.
God. So this is a very bad man.
And who were in that house for several days, but detectives from the Metropolitan Police, who presumably also went to the bathroom in his house.
God. But he was a victim. He was a victim, Harvey.
Oh, yes.
So he had to be believed according to Starmer.
He had to be believed according to Starmer.
We can't forget Starmer's role in this, Harvey.
I never have. I believe that other people have. I'm surprised that the Conservative Party at the time being the last general election, when Starmer went on about what a good chap he is, I was Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, didn't raise this issue. I asked them to, and they didn't.
And he's never changed his stance publicly.
He has never, he won't comment on his role in Operation Midland because he wasn't DPP at the time, but the damage he did was a year or two earlier when he told the Met Police, henceforth, you will believe the victim.
Exactly. And this is why, of course, there does need to be change. And it's an interesting one because the media always quite rightly leans on the side of full transparency. But it's only, I think, when we hear a story like yours, when you really realise why there does need to be an exception here. And I am now a supporter of FAIR, which is the Falsely Accused Individuals for Reform campaign, which was actually set up by Daniel Janner, the son of one of the people who was falsely accused in Operation Midland, but also supported by Cliff Richard, by Paul Gambaccini, by my friends Christine and Neil Hamilton, because all of those people, and you and me, know that false allegations by absolutely crazy people can cause serious damage for the rest of your life. And all we are asking for and I don't know if you agree, I presume you do, but all we are asking for is that these individuals are not named
Correct.
until there is a charge. So it doesn't, because people say, oh, what about all the other victims who might need to come forward? It doesn't stop that, because if someone is charged of a crime, there would be an opportunity for that to happen.
I also backed FAIR. I was very honoured to have been elected president of FACT, facing allegations in the context of trust. And I'm president of that organisation. I do what I can to speak out for those who've been falsely accused, not myself. Nothing now for me, but to prevent it happening to other people. I should say that I have assisted and helped, I won't name them, a number of Conservative members of Parliament who have been placed in the last few years in similar situations.
Well, I was actually going to ask you about one. I don't know if this was one you were involved in, but it's one that I have been having discussions with his friends recently, and it very much disturbed me, and it's David Warburton, who was a Conservative MP who was falsely accused of sexual crimes, also accused of snorting cocaine, which, you know, let's be honest, I'm not a cocaine user, never have been, but probably 90% of Westminster are. And in the past month, he took his own life. And I've spoken to his friends who say that he was never able to recover from these allegations. He ended up, I think he was doing HGV driving. Like, you know, his whole reputation was taken away. He lost his wife. And after he died, Starmer actually paid tribute to him in Parliament, but there's been no acknowledgement about the fact that these false accusations, according to his friends, Harvey, directly led to his death. So I think people need to wake up about just how serious this can be.
I'm very sorry about his case and his death. I was near to committing suicide in 1987, and I got very near to committing suicide in 2015. So I know the pressures and the difficulties that come when you are faced with these sort of false allegations.
Absolutely.
All I can say is that if you can, seek out somebody to talk to. Do not bottle it up. Do not stay silent yourself.
Because there is hope, okay? Because let's end on a positive note, because at 78 years young, you are now back in the Conservative Party for the first time since 1987, which is sort of like a full circle moment, I guess, for you, hopefully, in terms of maybe feeling like there's some sort of recovery from what you've gone through?
Well, from 1987, it took almost 30 years. And I said, in 2015, I won't have another 30 years. I do what I can, and I do try to help other people. I rejoined the Conservative Party earlier this year because my old association, both Basildon and Billericay, asked me to rejoin them. Richard Holden, their Member of Parliament, was keen that I should, and I have rejoined the Conservative Party. I resigned from the Conservative Party in 1987. Remember, I joined the Conservative Party when I was 14. You may recall, because you're too young perhaps, a British comedian called Tony Hancock. And one particular episode was Tony Hancock's blood donor. There he was in his East Cheam apartment, cogitating how to expand his social life. And for him, it was a toss-up between joining the Unconservatives or becoming a blood donor. In that episode, in 1961, he joined the blood donors. Exactly the same week, I joined the Unconservatives. So I think at one point I said, I will always be a Conservative and I will die as a Conservative.
Now you will. But hopefully we have many, many more years of you, Harvey. I think you are incredibly brave for speaking about this. I'm so grateful that you have. I know how difficult it is for you.
Thank you. And thank you for your viewers and listeners for following what is a difficult story.
It is a difficult story, but that's why I wanted people to really hear it from you. And we've got to be conscious. You know, we've got to be conscious because there will be another fantasist. Right?
Of course.
There always is. Yes. And let's just think, when those allegations as well, I don't care who you're talking about. I mean, I did the first interview with Kevin Spacey, for example, after all of the allegations against him. Cleared, Harvey, in courts of law in the United Kingdom and the United States, yet Channel 4 in this case. It's not James O'Brien for him, it's Channel 4. Keep on coming for him. There's an assumption that Russell Brand and Andrew Tate are both guilty. Let's allow a legal process to play out. Let's not rush to judge all of these men.
And falsely accused, the police, and I know the name Simon Bailey, who was a chief constable and for the College of Policing in charge of these matters, argued with Sir Richard Enriquez. Bailey said for the police that in his experience, the falsely accused represent about 1% of all cases. Sir Richard Enriquez, with his experience of being a High Court judge, thought it was more than 10%.
Which is a huge number.
We both know who to believe.
Big time. Big time. Well, look, it's been so brilliant to have you in the studio today, Harvey. Thank you for sharing your story. And let's keep up the fight against terrible people like James O'Brien.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.